This episode is brought to you by Bureau, our title sponsor. With 8 vibrant locations in Miami's best neighborhoods, Bureau is the perfect co-working place to work, network, and thrive alongside other entrepreneurs, creatives, professionals, and local businesses. Find your space at bureaumiami.com. It's been a while. We gotta get the cobwebs off.
It's been a while. Let's start with a cheers here.
Back
We're
in
here
the
with,
studio.
yeah, it's been a while. It's been a few weeks since we've recorded a podcast.
Who's ahead of me?
What do you mean?
Who was the last interview?
The last interview was Gil Deser.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're gonna
Leslie just came onto the board.
Leslie. Who?
Desert.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that had happened.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're here with Dr. Chuck Bohl, the director of Miami's Real Estate Development and Urbanism program. We're super excited to have you. We have a long track record, but before we get started, a little cheers, right?
Yeah, we're drinking Macallan.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Good stuff. We're drinking it neat.
Drinking it neat.
Neat all around.
Like
yeah,
real men.
This is like real men. Like this is Dr. Bohl's recommendation, so we went with it. We like to please our guests.
Thirsty Thursday.
And our first academic. So
That's true.
You have you're gonna have to try to make us sound smart. It's a tough task, Dr. Bohl. So
Well, I've heard you guys interviews, so I can dumb it down too.
please, you will need to for sure.
Speak slowly.
Yeah.
So I did not drink scotch until the pandemic.
Oh, is that right?
And it's because of a student. It was a student gift. It was before the pandemic because I never drank scotch.
Yeah.
And it sat around my house for a couple of years.
What did you like to drink?
And I was stuck home during the pandemic. It's like, well, I should just try this. And it was a nice bottle of Oban. And I tried it and very gradually acquired a taste for scotch. And then kind of through the pandemic, it's like, all right, it's the only thing that was being delivered. And,
Yeah.
so that became my
the house
entry
drink?
into scotch.
Yeah.
But
Easy
then I had to
drink to
go,
mix.
all the beer drinking had to end though, because
You were a beer drinker before that, right?
I was. So you can't
Yeah.
drink too much alcohol. So
Yeah.
now it's just NA beer.
Yeah.
So that I can have the occasional scotch.
I got you. All right. Cool.
It's all about balance.
All about balance. Well, Dr. Bohl and I have known each other for a long time. We've been, I connected with him first when I started attending the University of Miami's Real Estate Development program. I think in 2012 or 2011, I think is when I started. And I graduated in 2013.
So you were like the third or fourth graduating class.
I think so, yeah.
Third.
I think I
That's
started with the third and graduated,
Yeah.
Again, we're a little slow here, so.
Did you get held back at all? Or?
Yeah, I got held back a year. So I was on the 2-year program. Everyone else was like on the 1-year program.
Oh, man.
So we've known each other for quite a while, and I've stayed close to UM for quite some time through Gridix and now through the podcast, and I think we're going to get into the podcast or a little bit talk about you a little bit more, but really one of the reasons this podcast I think has been so successful is because of you and the board that you put together, the people that you've put together at the University of Miami's Real Estate Development program.
You've probably interviewed, I don't know, like half of them anyway, right?
We've interviewed probably we're on 100 interviews.
And they're great interviews. They're great people to interview.
Amazing people. That's one of the huge benefits of being part of the program is the network of people that are on that board.
And you were the alumni representative for
I was for a couple of years as well.
So you also got to network there.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about the podcast is I learn things about the board members, about people we know very well that you wouldn't otherwise learn. Just kind of some of the personal aspects that you guys get into. And I think that's why people like it so much.
Yeah, I think so too.
We go deep.
Yeah, and so now you're the
It's your turn.
It's your turn. Because we've sipped many a cocktail before, but it's usually in networking events. We've never had a proper sit down. So I know bits and pieces of you. I know your wife as well because she attends the networking events, and I end up hanging out with Lisa, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I ended up hanging out with Lisa a little bit.
You've probably met the kids at different
don't
times.
think
My
I've-
kids are all grown, so.
Maybe I have. but I can't recall. Okay, so you're a New Yorker, but upstate New York.
I am originally an upstate New Yorker.
Yeah. From Albany.
From the Albany area. Yeah, both sides of the family.
Both sides of the family. Yeah. And what part, like city of Albany, or what was the town?
So my mother's family was from the Helderbergs, the hills kind of out farther west above where Albany is. Not too far, but outside the city and up into the hills. They were farmers. That side of the family predates the United States.
Yeah.
So I'm one of the ancients.
Oh, really? Wow.
Who can trace the roots back to before there was a U.S.
Wow.
The United States
Hill
of America.
people. I'm starting to think of like Appalachia. And
farmers.
Yeah.
Serious farmers.
So
my
your
mother grew
ancestors
up on
have been
a farm.
here for centuries.
They were revolutionaries.
Holy shit.
Yep. We lost 6 in the revolution.
Wow.
6 members of the Dietz family on my mother's side. So that's an interesting part.
Yeah.
And then on my father's side, that's the family side we haven't traced back quite as far, but they got here in the 19th century, the Bohls. And there was a disruption along the way. My grandfather and his 2 brothers kind of got disowned by their family when their father remarried.
Gotcha.
And this is like early 20th century. So, I mean, these are kids who were like working in the factories and stuff and had a really rough life. Anyway, the father remarried. They were kind of out on their own. And all of them became actually quite successful. My grandfather started, first he was a taxi driver. He was illiterate. He drove a taxi in Albany.
This is on your dad's side?
That's on my dad's side.
And so Albany for
so you guys know, illiterate means he couldn't read or write.
Yeah.
Just,
Thank you.
To bring you guys
Slow
up to
down
speed
a
on
little.
that.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
sorry.
big words. A little slower. Albany is the capital of New York as well.
It is the capital.
So I hope most people know that, but it's
Shit, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah. It's it's about 2 hours north of New York City.
It is. So you go up and down the Hudson on Amtrak, beautiful ride this time of year. I went to NYU, so I did that ride many times. But at the end of the story, my grandfather's kind of progression is he married a school teacher. He couldn't read or write. He married a school teacher. He started a bus company, and you'll appreciate this, even before the Depression in like the 20s. And you could make money on transit in those days.
Private transit.
Because not everybody owned a car. All the factory towns, so around Albany, Schenectady, Troy, Cohoes.
The first jitney.
All mill towns, right? And so the bus company became very successful. And I have these great pictures of them with these beautiful kind of shiny buses that they were adding to the line. And that business thrived, right up through the World War II.
The Bohl Brothers Bus Company.
Bohl Brothers Bus Company. And that became, when it was acquired, the basis for the Capital District Transportation Authority. So that exists to this day. It's the Public Transportation Authority. Took over the Bohl Brothers and probably other lines.
So public transit is in your bones.
It is, but interesting that you could make money on it.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's really cool. And when you say, when is the Capital District Transportation Authority, is that Washington or what's Capital District?
Capital District is Albany.
Albany, okay.
Every state
capital of New York.
considers
Got it.
the Capital District, right?
Interesting. That's such a cool story.
Yeah.
And so what were the farmers? What did they farm in the hills?
The farmers were very self-sufficient.
All kinds of...
Yeah, my mother had great stories. My mother's passed, but she had great stories of growing up on the farm. That was her ideal point in her life. My father joked that he brought her down out of the hills and put shoes on her feet. But they met, interesting story, they met through baseball. So at this time in the 40s and 50s in particular, every town had a baseball team. And they would form leagues and the towns would play against each other. So my father was like the star pitcher, first baseman of one town, the town where I grew up. My mother, her brother was the star pitcher and shortstop for another team from the hills. And they were arch rivals. But my mother she kept score. She was the scorekeeper whenever her brother played. And her father was an umpire in the league. And the joke with my father was, whenever we played Bern, their town, it was us against Dietz and Dietz, because Dietz was the umpire and Dietz was the pitcher. But my mother said he was brutal on calling balls and strikes for his son. Imagine your father judging every single pitch you throw. Talk about a difficult situation.
He wasn't generous.
He was tough. He was tough, and he didn't want to be seen as being unfair. But that's how they met. They met through baseball. So baseball has always been kind of the big sport for me personally.
Yeah. And where did you grow up, Albany?
Grew up in a town called Guilderland.
Okay.
Moneyland.
How far is that from Albany proper?
That's about, so you can be downtown Albany in like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guilderland, Moneyland, what
Guilderland is the, so what is it, Dutch? It's
Dutch. I was going to guess like Dutch, Swedish, sounds like Finnish.
Yeah.
Is that what your lineage is? Like...
It's kind of German, Dutch, Irish.
I'm similar because I'm from Minnesota. It's all the Norwegians and Swedes that I guess we love punishing landscapes.
Yeah.
Barren, cold. It feels like home.
Well, like all Americans, our ancestors were kicked out of great countries and run off to other places and found their way here.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it like growing up? Was it kind of a suburb situation where you grew up, or? Guilderland was a hamlet, what you would call a hamlet, little crossroads, not even barely a village. I'm thinking Lord of the Rings when I hear Hamlet.
And it was kind of like, a very, very small amount of development out there. When my grandfather essentially sold the bus company in probably late 40s and moved out, and he basically retired. His wife passed very young. His wife passed at 50. And he basically bought land out there, and he became a landlord. He owned rental property. He owned property where there were banks that leased for long term, and gas stations and other things. He just owned a lot of land in the town.
Yeah.
But he was retired. He grew tomatoes, and the other thing, the multi-generational part is interesting. As he had 3 sons, my father was the youngest. Ed was the middle child. Charlie, his namesake, was the one who became a lawyer and went out quickly. The other 2 families with 3 children, 3 daughters for my uncle, and my father and mother had 4 of us, lived in my grandfather's house until they saved enough money to build their own homes. But talk about a multi-generational, life. I mean, he transformed his house to accommodate these 2 families of his children.
Yeah.
So how long did you live with your grandfather?
Till I was only 4 when we moved. So, but my brother and I were like 9 years apart. My brother was there until he was 13 years old.
Was this kind of like a farm situation, or was it closer to town?
So Hamlet, quickly turns into a pretty thriving suburb from those years going forward. So there's a lot of suburban development.
Yeah.
We end up really very much in suburbia. The University of Albany is built just outside of the kind of on the limits of the city of Albany as you're going west towards the town. And then the state office complex, this big office only kind of space for all the state employees was built out there as well.
Gotcha. I mean, that's just ripe for suburban sprawl. I mean, that's kind of like, I grew up out in the country, and when I go back, it was all cornfields, and now it's all just like these subdivisions because there's land forever. So you can keep building.
Ben, you know what they say in real estate, if people don't know you, they're not doing business with you.
Exactly. That's why the Built World podcast works with top-of-mind public relations, because being a best-kept secret sure doesn't pay the bills.
Paula Uspa-Abbott, the brains behind Top of Mind PR, is a former real estate journalist, so she knows exactly what makes the media pay attention.
And let's be real, getting in the press isn't just about bragging rights. It's about building credibility, landing deals, and making sure the right people know your name.
Whether it's top-tier media coverage, killer storytelling, or just making sure you're the one people think of first, Top of Mind PR has you covered.
Want to stand out? Hit up topofmind-pr.com or email info@topofmind-pr.com.
Because in real estate, if you're not visible, you're invisible. So let me ask you a question though. You grew up basically in the suburbs is what you're saying.
Exactly.
So, I asked this because
the land where we grew up, so this was gifted to my father by his father, the one who had retired and bought all this land. And he gave my father the land that had the town's baseball diamond where he had played. And,
so that's like downtown somewhere.
So no, it was just this field, right? Okay. It was just literally a field out in a meadow that he had created a baseball field for this team to play. But it was kind of nice that he gave it to my father, who had, kind of starred on this team, and
Yeah.
that became part of our property. And then he and I, eventually me, had the pleasure of cutting all of this grass, for, I mean, we're talking over 20 acres of land.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a multi-day project.
Yeah.
Did you have a riding lawnmower at least?
We had not only riding a lawnmower, we had a tractor. We had
Yeah.
a Cub
Oh, sweet.
tractor. So
What kind of tractor?
it was a Cub.
Cub.
It was really,
Was
really
it one of
nice.
those drag behind, like 6
We
blade?
had, we had the rotating, teeth on the
front?
big bed, right through the middle of it.
Oh, cool.
You stepped up on that.
Look
to
at
get
you
on.
farm boys still geeking out over here on factory, on
I
farm
always
gear.
tried to talk him into getting the ones you drag along behind the whole.
Yeah, those are cool.
But he didn't go for it.
I mean, I used to, my lawn was 5 acres and it took me all day, and we just had the basic ride along one, and I can sympathize.
Yeah,
but I was in the era of Walkmans. At least I had a CD player.
Well, I'm not that old. I did have a Walkman at that. Yeah, it was an early Walkman.
So the tapes.
Yeah, the tapes.
Nice.
Yeah.
What were you jamming out to?
What was I jamming out to back then? It's probably like Aerosmith and Led
Awesome.
Zeppelin and
Hell yeah.
Because you're kind of a rock star, right? You play the guitar,
I was more of a rocker. Yeah.
and you still play the guitar, and
Still play the guitar.
you got a band that you jam out with.
I do
everyone?
not have a band.
Oh, no?
No. My band days were in my teens and early 20s,
All right.
but then I wrote music, so
Okay.
that was going to be what I was going to do.
What kind of guitar are we working with?
I have, so if you're a guitar guy, you'll appreciate it. I have a 65 Strat,
Oh, that's sick.
which is a pre-CBS
Wow.
Strat before they sold Fender was sold to CBS.
That's worth some money now.
It is worth some money. It's probably the only thing I have that's worth a fair amount of money. when my oldest son got interested when he was a teenager, probably 12, 13, I brought it out and I'm letting him play it. And then I'm like, this is probably worth a few $100 by now,
Yeah.
And I looked it up and I'm like, oh my God, give me that.
Well, yeah, today that's probably what, like at least 20, 30 grand.
Yeah,
If not more.
It's in that
Dang.
range.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, they're sick.
Wow.
And what color is it?
It's the Starburst.
Oh, epic.
Yeah.
And it probably has some great little dings on it.
All
Makes
the
it
belt
look.
buckle is all dug up by belt buckles on the
I
back
love
of it.
that.
Very, very classic.
Because now
Whammy bar.
One of my favorite stores in Miami is the Walt Grace Vintage. You ever go in there in Wynwood?
No.
It's it used to be called Cars and Guitars. Now it's called Walt Grace Vintage. I think it's right by Zach the Baker, kitty corner of Zach the Baker. And the showroom's full of like vintage Porsches and Lamborghinis and Ferraris. And then all the walls are covered in guitars and amps, like all kinds.
This is dangerous to tell me.
Oh,
because,
it's epic, and they'll let you play anything. You can take it off the wall, plug it in. They have all these vintage amps. But where I was going with all the new guitars now, like the Fender, all the new Fenders, they make them look distressed, but they're not actually old.
Right.
And it's just so lame to me. It's kind of like distressed jeans. It's like you got to get it worn down. You're like what you have is the real deal.
Yeah.
They're trying to like mimic it, but. Yeah, definitely check that place out if you're a guitar guy.
Absolutely.
Do you have an acoustic too, or you just still play the electric?
I have a mix of guitars. So I don't know, maybe 4 guitars. I have a 6-string, a 12-string, and others. But my sons kind of went crazy once they picked it up.
Oh, yeah?
We kept adding guitar hooks down the hallway, and it's like
that's amazing.
The hallways were lined, and the rooms
Looks
were
like a
lined
rock
with guitars.
museum.
But
That's
now they've moved out, so those guitars have mostly decanted to their.
You guys jam
their
together?
homes. We play together.
I mean, that's like a dad's
so
dream come
cool.
true. I'm trying to get my kids into music, but very like, slowly on their own.
They did. They came to it on their own.
I don't want to scare anybody away. So, but that's epic. That's epic. I have a Strat too, but I have like the punk rock version. I have the Tom DeLonge Blink-182, just a double humbucker pickup.
I had the guitar I had back when I played in a band back in the late 70s, early 80s was a Kramer. Do you remember the Kramers with a metal neck back when they had a metal neck?
Is it Kramer with a K?
With a K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a metal. Isn't it like a metal?
It is a metal neck. The
Yeah.
odd thing was how top heavy it was, right? Because the neck was so heavy.
What kind of music did you guys play?
It was, a lot of cover band stuff before
Okay, cool.
I started writing my own music. Yeah.
All right, let's go back to childhood. I got carried away.
Okay.
I like it. It's cool. I know nothing about guitars.
So growing up, like what were you into as a kid, like younger days or growing up in the suburbs of Albany?
Yeah. So suburbs, like I'm growing up almost like on a farm,
Baseball,
right?
you said.
Yeah, but I'm on 20 acres. I'm not like going around the neighborhood, doing stuff with other kids for the most part. I'm
So
on
you really didn't have neighbors?
no. I mean, if you want to see a neighbor, you really did get in a car.
Yeah, holy shit.
But it wasn't because it was a suburb. It was because
You lived
I
out
was
far-
like
yeah.
so far back,
Yeah.
near the woods. But what did we do? We actually did have a big garden, which was cool. And I did play sports. I played a lot of golf when I was in my, probably from like maybe 11 to 16, 17. So when like my parents would go to work at like 7 o'clock in the morning, they'd drop me at the golf course, which we belonged to, this golf course way out away from our house somewhere. And so I'd be there with some other kids and we'd play like 72 holes of golf.
Oh, wow.
That's all we would do all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was great. I still love
no
golf.
golf carts back then, right? You guys were walking it.
No, you carry
it, right? None of that little like.
I still
little...
can't get used to golf carts. Yeah. It's like, but I have not played much. I hope to play more if life slows down.
Yeah.
Ben, you and I are all about PropTech, and if there's one tool we absolutely cannot live without for our commercial real estate brokerage business, it's Vista.
Absolutely. Vista is incredible. We use it every single day, and we're always wondering, how do they do this? Every evening we get an email from them with real-time closed transactions. No more waiting around for months for the property appraiser to finally update.
Yeah, whether you're doing industrial, retail, office, land deals, they have every closed transaction. And it's not just the speed, Ben. The details are on point. Seller and buyer info, contact details, phone numbers, emails, everything is accurate.
It's hands down our top prospecting tool to farm for warehouse deals in Hialeah. Vista keeps us one step ahead always. It's also the best way to search for comps when putting together opinions of values for clients.
Head on over to Vista.com and use code BuiltWorld and get 30 days free access today. VIZZDA.com.
And were you into? Did you have any the hustles as a kid? Were you into entrepreneurship at all? Do you have like paper routes, lemonade stands, that kind of thing, or
no?
Just working the farm. And
what was your first job?
One of the first jobs I remember was it was this massive. There was an industrial park up near where my mother worked, Guilderland Center, the next town over, and the rail line came in there. It was an old like military industrial park. And there was a company there, probably still is, called Wine Merchants. It was this massive warehouse where all of the wine and liquor would come in, and then it would be distributed to the stores from there. My job was to set up the dot matrix printer, like at night, that streamed out the inventory that was coming in, and then other fun jobs like sweeping the floor of this gigantic warehouse, things like that.
How old were you?
I was not 18. I was probably 17. I think you had to be about that to be working.
And so you turned 18.
But let's talk a little bit about high school. What were the subjects you were interested in high school?
So I was a good student. I was good in math. I liked history. I had a creativity streak. Could write. Writing's always been a strength for me. But by the time I'm getting toward the end of my time in high school, mid-high school, I was on the golf team year one as a freshman, and then I started playing guitar in a band, and that was it. Then it was just all about music.
You're gonna be a rock star.
And yeah,
pull the mic a little closer.
So my exit interview with the high school counselor was, well, what do you want to do, Chuck? You're gonna go to college, right? I'm like, well, yeah, maybe. And my parents really were insisting you're going to college. Really, in my mind, I'm going to play music.
Your siblings had gone to college too.
Oh, yeah. My siblings all went to college.
All right.
And I was the youngest. So all three had gone. There was an expectation I would go too.
Did we have long hair at this point?
I had pretty long hair in high school. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It got progressively shorter after high school.
Who were you rocking out to the most at that point?
Well, so anyway, the conversation with the guidance counselor was very short, and it was like, and he looks at my grades. He's like, you're good in math. We have a great college up there called Siena College. They have a great accounting program. You'll go into accounting.
Oh, geez.
And so that was the only college I applied to, and
Painful.
I was funneled into the accounting program.
That didn't scare you away as a rocker? You're like, I'm going to go count?
It was, but I was a commuter too, so I'm commuting up. I'm going to these classes. It was actually a great college because it was liberal arts base, so I had other courses. But my core of corporate finance and accounting, corporate finance is okay, but accounting, I was at the end of my second year of accounting, in the very last class, and I had a great, the director of the program, his last name was Vargas. He did a little talk to all of us at the end of the class, and he said, look, if you're not sure if you want to be an accountant, you want to be in accounting, there's two things you're wasting. You're wasting time and you're wasting money. He said, money, you can always get back, but time, you never can. And I thought, oh my God, I'm wasting time. I'm wasting my life.
Yeah.
So it was time to move on.
So you're
from
taking
that.
liberal art classes though as well, right? So what are you kind of gravitating towards in college that you're like, oh, this is interesting. I like this.
Well, at that point, you go from being a high school student to a college student, and if you're curious, if you have an intellectual curiosity, you kind of become interested in everything. All of a sudden, all the stuff that was kind of boring or you weren't interested in when you were 13, 14, 15 years old, when I feel like you get into college and you're exposed to good faculty and great ideas and everything, suddenly, the kind of light bulb starts going off. And I was interested in most everything I was taking. We had, it was a Catholic-based institution, so we had religious studies courses, which I thought were great. The instructors for that were friars. They, teaching the literature, the Bible's literature and great world religions and things like that. But then there was creative writing, there was history, there was English literature, there was, all of the liberal arts bases, philosophy. So by the time I transfer, I go to NYU, and there's an intermission where I go for audio engineering. And there was a joint degree with NYU. I enter NYU and go into their University Without Walls program. And the basis for that undergrad degree was great books and classic texts. So, that was kind of perfect for me. And I could take all different courses I could do. In addition to that, I could do courses in Tisch School of the Arts. I could do, a whole variety of things at that point.
What did that mean, without walls?
Without walls means you weren't pigeonholed into one particular degree.
Got it.
Or one particular school. So you had a lot of freedom to choose between different courses and what you could get into as a non-major for some of the other programs. And that was perfect for me because I was kind of interested in everything at that point.
So you get to explore different disciplines, right?
Yeah.
And so you were at Siena for how many years?
I was at Siena. I did 2 years at Siena and 2 years at NYU.
So you moved to New York City. You were what year?
Yeah. So I moved to New York City right when it went bankrupt. So it was 81, around 81.
It's a hell of a time to move to New York.
Yeah.
What was that?
New York. So
was
New
that
York,
like whiplash going from the country to the city?
New York was my urban education.
I'm sure.
So I lived in Bay Ridge for part of the first year. Then I moved in and I sublet in the East Village, which was close to NYU, and that's where I wanted to be. And then I got my own place, which I shared with another student in the East Village for the rest of the time there. And I paid, how much do you think I paid in 1981 for a kind of 2-bedroom apartment in the East Village?
Your half or the whole thing?
Whole thing.
Man.
All in.
$500 a month.
That's a good guess.
I would say less.
Less.
$450.
Oh,
wow.
Shit. I have the odds.
Wow, holy shit. That's
Split.
Yeah.
I don't think he
split.
paid. I don't think my roommate paid half. He probably paid like $200 and I paid $250.
That's
Okay.
You
But
had
I
a
could
better
get up in the
bedroom?
morning, walk to NYU. I mean, I walked. Basically, I didn't have a lot of money. I had a part-time job, but I walked the city.
What were you part-timing in?
constantly.
What was your part-time job?
My part-time job was we were recording. I was in a company recording instructional language tapes, foreign language tapes based on the foreign service courses.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird job, but it was.
Yeah.
It was,
But I see are we in like a recording studio?
Yeah, not this
Around
kind of
it.
recording studio. We were essentially making copies of things that had already been produced.
And are you playing in a band anymore? And
No, but so there I'm composing. I'm doing my own stuff. I'm playing out and just on my own.
that's a hell of a scene to be a part of in the
recording
80s.
a lot, and that culminated. So I was gonna, in order to stay in the music business and make money, I was gonna work in audio engineer. I was gonna be a recording engineer, and that ended with my first internship. This is the importance of internship for you guys. Internships for all my students to gain work experience and really find out if this is what you want to do. So I did one internship with a recording studio, pretty significant recording studio. And it was kind of like through the night, right? Through the deep dark of the night, I found that I was recording music that I couldn't stand, that I really didn't enjoy. And you guys probably would have enjoyed this. There's a lot of drugs and like, prostitution, things like that. So
Yeah, we love that shit.
I mean, it may have appealed to you.
Not us, but our listeners for sure, right, Ben?
Drugs and hookers. I mean, that's
What our listeners love.
No, I mean, I lasted all of like probably one semester in that, and they were unpaid.
What kind of music that drove you nuts? Like metal or what?
No, it was just
Weird.
it was not the kind of music that I was interested in, and it probably was performed okay. But I'm like, why am I going to spend all my time recording music that I really don't enjoy? Yeah. It's going to ruin, my love of music for me. So
totally.
That was another turning point.
Some of you might know that I'm in the middle of building a Live Local project right now, and finding an internet provider was way more annoying than it should have been. Endless acronyms, pricing all over the place, and me chasing these guys for proposals. Then luckily, I came across Celerity Fiber, South Florida's boutique internet provider for new developments and multifamily communities. Working with them feels like working with a company your friend owns. They actually answer calls and texts, send quotes fast, and are genuinely great to work with. Celerity designs and installs fiber internet built for modern living. Fast, reliable, and ready from day one. From luxury high-rises to affordable communities, they deliver high-speed, scalable internet with white glove service and local support. The kind big internet service providers just can't match. So if you want to future-proof your property and keep your residents happy, check out celerityfiber.com. That's spelled Celerity, fiber.com, and let them know the Built World sent you. Celerity Fiber, powering connections, elevating experiences.
So, I mean, you're this country boy that ends up in New York City. And I mean, that's gotta be like, whoa, like what's going on here? From farm boy to, I mean, you were in the Lower East Side in the 80s. Like,
yeah.
Alphabet
City.
Yeah.
Between A and B.
Is that where you start? I mean, this is like the heart of where Jane Jacobs, right, starts her journey against Robert Moses. And this is like where the real gritty urbanism is happening in New York City at that point. It's one of the older parts of New York City. Is this where you start getting a feeling like you love cities and there's no way you're going back to suburbia?
Well, like I said, it was my urban education. So I literally, every day and then every weekend, whenever I was free, I was walking. I was walking the city. I would walk on the weekends. I would walk from the East Village up to Central Park. I'd get my gigantic Sunday New York Times and go to Central Park and read as much of the New York Times as I could.
Typical fucking New Yorker, right?
Yeah, classic.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a club scene. I didn't have a lot of money to do the club scene, but when I did go out, I knew some people who were like reviewers for the Village Voice. And
oh, wow.
So they could get me in, and that was interesting time as well. But
I can imagine.
It was a lot of exploring, to going to all different parts of the city, the parks were not places. This was not the Bloomberg era of New York, right? They were rough places.
Yeah.
It was a lot of drugs, a lot of, places that even as a 6'2" guy, I would not go walking through at certain times.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty rough there. I mean, there was it was kind of like the arts creative scene. I mean, this is. And so let me ask you, did you ever meet Tony Goldman in this during this time?
I didn't, but one of the so at the time I took a video course, and at the time video was back and forth between whether it was going to be Betamax or the VHS format. So we had these at Tisch School of the Arts, we had these big video cameras. They were substantial video cameras. They were not like these little things on the table here. So you could take them out as a student, and you could go and shoot things and create your project. So I did one on Grand Central Station, and I do my own music to that, electronic music. And then I did one on Spring Street in Soho. And that one, that was actually one of my favorite pieces. That was Tony Goldman's early Soho. Green Street Cafe was there. And so as I got to know the Goldmans and look back, I'm like, I knew Tony's work from that time period.
That's crazy.
And we talked a lot about this over the past year with the Goldmans. And I really love the fact I've actually gone back. Whenever I'm back in New York, I usually try to go visit that area and kind of get back in touch with Tony's vibe.
I love it.
What a vibe. That's so cool. So the recording studio, the internship was a turning point for you.
It was the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
So what was the next chapter? What did you decide to do after that?
Well, then went back home, I end up going back after a couple of years. I go back to school in Albany for.
So you graduate and you go back to Albany.
Graduate and I go back to Albany. Yeah, it's like
back to the farm.
Back to the farm. I end up going to SUNY Albany for a master's in urban and regional planning, which
Why?
was a great program. I think my first job back, I was like a teaching assistant in a high school. I ran a computer lab. They saw I had taken one course. Now this is early computers, right? Computer science. I had taken one course in basic at NYU. That's how eclectic my education was. And I was applying for all kinds of jobs. It was not a good economy. And so local school saw that and they said, hey, we want you to essentially run the computer lab, be the guy who hangs out in the lab. So that was my first job. And then I said, teaching might not be such a bad thing. And the area I was most interested in was more kind of history, social studies. I figured I can go back, pick up a few courses, and then I'll get my certificate and I'll teach. Well, the first semester they said, well, you don't have enough courses in that specialty, and you got to do a semester of supplemental undergrad stuff. One of those courses was an urban planning course, and it had a great professor, and they recruited me into that program. So I was kind of hooked on that from that course. That was a great program. That was a 2-year program.
What did you like about that course? And was there a particular author or something that you read that really resonated with you?
It included kind of soup to nuts about history of urban planning, town planning, and we were required to read Jane Jacobs' Life and Death of Great American Cities. And that was that and other things, but that in particular was really eye-opening. It kind of resonated. And and
especially with your experience now living in New York City, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But then the disillusion as you start going through a planning program this is the later 80s, is that it's about regulation. And it's not about what we talk a lot about now. It's not about urban design and physical planning and livable communities and all of those things. We didn't really learn all of that. We were kind of being trained to be regulators, and
checking boxes.
Yeah, and allocating. Okay, we expect this much growth of retail, office, single family, and multifamily, and we'll just create blotches on the map to put each of those things on there. Have enough acreage set aside for that, and then of course we'll stitch it all together with highways, with roads and highways. That was planning of the time period. And so while I'm doing that, the new urbanism kind of appears on the scene. I'm at the end of my degree and I realize I haven't learned any of that. And that's really the big transformation.
So what year is this?
This is late 80s into the early 90s. So I write about this, and I did this essay for the Art of the New Urbanism book, which talks about this turning point, not just in my life, but in a lot of people's lives, where we were kind of made aware of this other way of designing places, of designing communities and approaches to planning that we had no concept of. And I'm talking like lawyers and planners like me, not just architects. These were people in finance and development. And so when I write about it in the essay, it's like there's this little book called The Pedestrian Pocketbook that Doug Kelbaugh did. And it's like 60 pages. Princeton Architectural Press put it out, very paperback. And I found it in a bookstore. I pick it up, and it was essentially a charrette, a studio at Berkeley, I think it was. Or maybe it was at University of Washington, but it had Dan Solomon, it had Peter Calthorpe involved. And they did these scenarios with the students to create what they called a pedestrian pocket that would be mixed use and walkable. And it was all kind of black and white sketches and everything. And it becomes a bestseller. It like this idea of transit-oriented development and walkability, that becomes a bestseller in this little pamphlet. And so that's followed up by, there was an exhibition by Dwayne Platter-Zeeberg at Harvard Graduate School of Design that Alex Krieger helped put together. And that's one of the next books I find. And again, it's from an exhibition. It's mostly black and white. But you open this book and you have a single page that's the code of a community. That's the code for Seaside that was being built at that time.
And what year is Seaside being built in?
So Seaside starts right about 1980. And so by now, this is like a decade later that this is being published. And a lot of us there's plenty of people who knew about it along the way. And there was articles in like Southern Living and places like that. But it really hadn't pierced the consciousness of kind of the mainstream of different professions. So we start looking at this. So, you open this book and you have one page that's the entire code of how to build this community. And on the other page is the explanation of how that code works in one page written by Bill Leonards. And so that just kind of, blew this, the planner's mind. And then comes Peter Calthorpe's book on transit-oriented development, Great American cities, and what was the other one? Dan Solomon's book on rebuilding. Those 4 books, all paperback books, come out within a period of like 3 or 4 years, and really kind of lights a fire into people. The new urbanism the term didn't exist until 93, 94. In fact, the charter was signed. Next year will be 16, it'll be what, 30 years? 30 years next year.
Felipe, ever since we moved into Bureau, my productivity has been through the roof. I mean, I might actually be getting things done for once.
The energy at Bureau just makes work fun. Plus, with 8 locations across South Florida, from South Miami all the way to Hollywood, there's no excuse for not finding a spot to get your shit done, Ben.
And we're not alone. Over 500 local companies call Bureau home. Everything from creative agencies and real estate firms to tech startups, law firms, and media companies. It's a melting pot of brilliant people, and we don't include ourselves in that category.
We definitely don't include ourselves in that category. Bureau really has space for anyone, whether you're flying solo or have a team. There are suites starting at 100 square feet all the way up to 2,000 square feet. They also don't try to lock you into long-term agreements, and everything is month to month.
Let's not forget the important stuff either. The coffee is top tier, staff is incredible, and has a very entrepreneurial vibe. It's not just a workspace, it's a place where work actually gets done.
That's right, Ben. So if you want to level up your workday like we try to do every day, check out Bureau. You might even catch us sipping some espressos between podcast sessions.
Or tequila.
Definitely tequila.
Tell Bureau the Built World sent you, and you'll get 50% off your first month's membership. See you out there. Cheers.
So you're back in Albany. What year are you in Albany in your master's degree program?
So what's the exact year I finished? My son is born in 1993. I'm married in 89. My son, we were done. My wife was finishing undergrad. I was finishing grad. So we both graduate and we get married I think we officially graduated maybe in 1990. We got married in 1989.
Okay.
First son's born in 1993. In the interim, after I graduate, I work for a big utility company, which no longer exists, Niagara Mohawk Power Company. Classic old power company. I was in economic development. So I was doing research on industries we wanted to keep in New York State and industry we wanted to attract and expand. And so I'm frustrated. I was interested in this thing, New Urbanism, I didn't get. I'm doing all this research every day. And then I come up with the idea that, you know what? I'd like to wake up every morning and I would like to choose what I research. And I want to research this stuff. And I want to go back and I want to get a doctorate so that then I can go back into a planning school and start, reintroducing all the stuff, because the things that New Urbanism brought back were really a throwback to the 20s, right? 20s and 30s when we built great communities and the Raymond Unwins of the world and classic era of civic art. I wanted to bring that back to town planning.
Because we were doing it, right? And then
what blew it up? The car?
It was multiple things. I mean, the modern movement begins, the crash, 28-29 crash. If you haven't read or listened to Andrew Ross Sorkin's 1929,
really?
If you want to be a little concerned about your investments, it's fascinating. I've been going through that recently, but it takes it through that time period. That wasn't the only reason for the Depression, by the way. It also talks about the tariffs in that era, the back and forth with the Fed. The Fed existed back then. All of the things we are talking about today with interest rates and tariffs. And
Do you see a lot of parallels?
Lots of parallels. And this is part of why I think he wrote the book.
So we should cash out.
Yeah.
I mean, still different time period. But that time period, I mean, you look at all of the cities with full communities and neighborhoods that were developed from 1900 through say 1930 or so. Those are the most expensive, kind of beloved, enduring neighborhoods in cities. So you go to Charlotte, and it's like Dilworth and Myers Park that John Nolan designed. There's a whole series of them around Raleigh, up near where my son is living now. Down here, it's Coral Gables is a classic example, right? So these were kind of their time, but they weren't one-offs. There was an entire movement through town planning, architecture, transportation, infrastructure, city building, the whole City Beautiful movement, civic art. It was the culture of placemaking and the way we built communities of that time period. And so the crash comes, the depression comes, which is the real killer, right? We just don't build things. And then World War II. So you have a very long interlude when not much of anything is being built. I mean, everything's going to war production. And during that time period, there's a variety of cultural things, historical cultural things that go on. I mean, the rejection of anything traditional, certainly traditional architecture in Europe becomes completely thrown aside after World War II. It's kind of associated with the most oppressive governments that rose at the time. And in the U.S., while not quite the same thing, modernism really, really comes to the fore right after World War II. And this is also part of the essay. So I talk about why is this stuff called New Urbanism and the drawings and diagrams and plans that were created that influenced us so strongly decades later. Why was it so kind of revolutionary? And you really have to look to the decades right after World War II when we go into urban renewal and suburbanization to understand it, and especially urban renewal. So I took two projects. I took the Lower Manhattan Expressway, which was Robert Moses and Jane Jacobs and that story, and Battery Park City in Manhattan to kind of profile what illustration and town planning, city planning looked like during that time period, and what the audience for that was, which was not the public. There was no big public meetings where we all voiced our opinions. The audience were the power brokers and the architectural media. And you and I were just supposed to be like super impressed and blown away by the vision of the future that was coming.
And that's kind of what blew up the traditional architecture. And we went into these.
That's what urban renewal was predicated on. So I mean, the idea that anything old, anything pre-modern, was obsolete, including all of Lower Manhattan. That's what part of there was the big Lower Manhattan plan that was done, and across the country. I mean, people know of urban renewal, and we know of the kind of the higher profile examples, the Pruitt-Igos and things like that. But when you look at the countrywide impact on cities, before the funding ended in the early 70s, there were tens of thousands of acres cleared in thousands of cities and towns and villages across the United States. And I think the record was less than 50% of those had anything built at the time the funding ended.
Oh, wow.
So there was this massive clearing that took place. So you have a couple things. You have public housing being built, and then you have highways being built through cities. So even, Albany had the highways run across the river between Albany and Troy, and then all along the waterfront. It was the easy place. It's like, well, the rail lines are declining. We're not doing as much shipping, so we'll just use the waterfront.
Where's the least expensive, right?
This old industrial land. And now that's where the really tough battles are to reclaim.
So this idea that you wanted to research whatever you want and dive into it, is that what pushed you to go pursue your PhD?
That did, yeah. So that was the plan. It's like, and family on both sides thought we were rather crazy. We had this 1-year-old, and it's like, nope, I'm going to go back, get a doctorate. And I remember my boss in economic development of the power company going, "What do you flush with cash?"
So you decide to move to UNC,
Yeah.
to Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
What year do you move to Chapel Hill?
We moved to Chapel Hill in, let me see, Zach was born in 93. So it was New Year's Eve 94. I start in January 95.
Okay. And where did you and your better half meet?
We met, she was from Voorheesville. I was from Gilderland, one town apart. Yeah.
So you guys met up in
We met,
up on the farm?
We were I mean, we have roots with our families to go, there's still some folks there. We both lost, unfortunately, both parents. My mother-in-law was the last one passed earlier this year, but we've had a wonderful long kind of connection to our families and extended family. Her family was on the Italian side. So the Patrones, her maiden name is Patron, had these amazing reunions, and still do, where you just get, dozens and dozens of people turn out. My family was much less like that.
The loud Italians.
Yeah.
They know how to have fun. That's awesome. This episode is brought to you by Built World Advisors. Yeah, that's us. We're not your typical commercial brokerage. We combine deep market knowledge with a media platform that actually connects to people doing deals, the developers, brokers, architects, and attorneys.
Let's not forget the investors, Ben. From warehouses in East Hialeah to off-market gems in Allapattah, we help you find value where others aren't looking. If you're tired of waiting for opportunities to land in your inbox, let's talk.
Built World Advisors, real estate for the people who get shit done. You can check us out at builtworldadvisors.com. So North Carolina, and how long were you there for?
Probably too long. So working on the doctorate, and here's the challenge. Like I'm all in on, I want to study this stuff, new urbanism. I want to write about it. I want this to be what I'm known for. My faculty are like, hey, we have this $1 million grant on like hazard mitigation and on, housing and on these other topics. And so they're encouraging me, just use the data set, Chuck. Just use the data set. You can be done quickly. I'm like, no, I want to do this. So it took me longer. And I remember one summer, I had to finish all my coursework. I had to do my comprehensives. And then I get to all but dissertation. And I'm doing multiple teaching and research assistantships to make money. I wrote 3 grants that summer, and one by one, just to do my doctoral research, one by one, they all get turned down. Nobody wants to fund this research on this fad, new urbanism. So it was a really kind of like getting to be desperate times. And that's when I'd been writing book reviews for Urban Land magazine. One of my PhD buddies got me connected there. And he said, why don't you propose, you're doing all this stuff on town centers. I'd already decided my focus is mixed use town centers, transitory development. He said, and at the time ULI had a great series of conferences that had just started called placemaking. And that's exactly what they were about.
And Urban Land magazine is basically run by ULI.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So just want to make that connection.
Yeah. So I'm writing book reviews. You'd make a little money on that. That was another thing on the side. And then David Salveson, who's my friend, said, why don't you propose, you'll write a feature article and they'll pay you to go to the conference and to write that article. They'll pay you a little more.
To what conference is this?
The placemaking conference. So you get to meet everybody who's doing all these projects that you want to write about, you're doing your research on. I said, that's a great idea. So we do that. And they approve it. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is my funding. This is how I'm going to go forward. And then a couple weeks later, they're like, oh, Chuck, yeah, I'm really sorry. I forgot we gave that to somebody else to write for the magazine. I was like crushed. I'm back to, I have no funding. Now I've got, but this time we did have 3 kids. So we've been in Chapel Hill long enough for the 3rd to have just been born that last year. And then I'd sent them everything I'm working on town centers. I'd done a lot of writing. I've done all this literature research and I'm ready to go on this. And just a little while after that, I get a call back from Dean Schwanke, who I believe is still with ULI. He was the vice president in charge of they were a big producer of books at the time. They still do, but they did a lot more at the time. And he said, hey, I know you couldn't, we couldn't let you have this article, but would you be interested in doing a book based on this topic? And I was like, absolutely.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So I jumped on that. I wrote my first ever book proposal. I called up Reed Ewing and Doug Porter, who had written books for ULI. I said, how do I come up with a cost for this? How do I estimate this? You guys have published books with them. And they said, you're not going to get paid for your time, but just know that you're doing it for these other reasons, And so I put a good sized dollar amount on that and included travel money. And I think it was right before Thanksgiving, right around this time of year, I got home one day and I found out that I'd gotten that contract.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So that changed everything. That allowed me to travel. I mean, I went
So you
everywhere.
get an advance basically on the...
Got an advance. So, and then as I did each section of the book, I got more of that. I think it's probably okay to say these days, but the contract was about $50,000, which is big money for us at the time. But it allowed me in sections. So, you might get 10 up front and then you start delivering portions and you get installments.
10 grand ain't what it used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I went everywhere. I came down here. It was one of my first trips. I came down, and in one day I went to Celebration to see the town center there. I flew down here and I went to Meisner Park. And then I think I ended at City Place. I hit all three in one day. City Place was brand new. It was just being finished. And then I got to go to all over the country. I visited other places. I met with developers. I met with the designers. I met with local officials. And
So you're basically like, I want to see some cool fucking projects, and I'm going to go and I'm going to walk it and feel it and touch it and talk to the people that are building this stuff.
Hey, Felipe, did you move my scotch away from me? Am I talking too much?
I'm
here?
sorry.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
like,
It was a new pour.
okay. I thought maybe you were just cutting me off.
Do you want?
Scotch like,
Yeah, sorry. I should have moved it back.
I noticed it got farther away all of a sudden.
It's a little more full now. So
Okay.
maybe
So
a
it's one of those
further, but
things at the restaurant
you gotta
where they
work
keep
for it a little bit.
refilling
Yeah,
your glass.
yeah.
I'm going to have to watch this now. It's like,
The bottomless scotch. And I'm curious,
for
what...
those of you listening, I did not finish the first glass of scotch, okay? This
Not
is,
true. Not true. The camera's on.
And it's interesting you took this path. Like, what made you take the what's the word? Academic path versus like the developer path. Like, you, instead of building the cities, you were more interested in kind of the research side of things.
Yeah, it was, well, in part it was to reform what I saw as what had been really ripped out of planning education. And that was very much what happened.
Because that was a direct experience you had.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, physical planning and design, the roots of planning were town planning and people like Raymond Unwin. It was physical planning and design in the beginning. But from the beginning, they were very oriented toward social change, all the latest technology, housing. I mean, of their time, it was tenement slums and things like that they were dealing with. But all of the new technologies were happening, all the innovations in transportation. That's kind of forgotten. But then by the time we get to the 60s, it's like planning wants to be a science. They want to be established as a science, a social science field in the university where they can get big grants and they can be taken seriously. And we're not this large scale design stuff that's architecture. And it really is wiped out of planning programs around the country. So that was my mission. It was like, no, we need to bring this back as part of what planning is about. And then the end of that story is they get hired at School of Architecture at the University of Miami with Liz Platter-Zeberk and all of these fantastic designers. I'm like the least qualified person to be, teaching about design.
Well, you finished the book, and how did it do?
The book becomes a bestseller for the Urban Land Institute. So they did a lot of books that were for a purpose. They were educational. They would do them not intending to make money. I remember when we're going to host the ULI Fall meeting this coming fall, 2026.
That's right.
When was the last time we had it? Do you remember?
In Miami Beach?
In Miami.
In Miami? I have no idea.
The big ULI Fall meeting, the biggest one of the year.
When was it?
2008.
Wow.
It wasn't a particularly good year for hosting the conference.
No.
However, I remember the visiting committee comes from DC, from the ULI. We met in somewhere downtown, and you could see the skyline. So at that time, it's all cranes. And they were so blown away. It's like, wow, this is like the perfect place. This is so exciting to have the conference here and everything. And we started having a discussion about different aspects of what would be involved in the program. And somehow the topic of ULI publications came up. And I remember Neeson was there, Neeson Kasdan. I think he was chair at the time of our ULI District Council. And somebody said, well, we publish a lot of books, but they don't really make money. And Neeson said, well, some of them do. And looks over to me. And so the placemaking book, it becomes a hit. And it's been
awesome.
reprinted, I don't know, like 8, 9, 10 times now. The regret is that it's not hardcover, it's a soft cover. But
when did you first publish it? What year?
Came out in 2003.
Okay.
Yeah. And
you were writing this while you're still up in North Carolina.
I started it there. So it's actually based in the Center for Urban and Regional Studies. I had a great office in this old house, Hickerson Lane up in Chapel Hill. The first half was worked on there, and then I get hired in Miami.
What do you get hired for in Miami?
I get hired to be the director of the KNIGHT program, KNIGHT, KNIGHT Foundation, in community building, which Liz Platter-Zeeberk and faculty had put together a proposal, and then they were searching for a director. There's a great story on this, but I'd gotten connected to Liz because I'd gotten a grant to do a symposium in Chapel Hill, and it was my opportunity to invite all the people I wanted to meet to come up and do a talk. And I'd invited Liz as one of them, and she'd agreed. And I'd sent her everything. Here's everything I'm doing. I'm trying to get in touch with Leon Creer to have him come, and she's connecting me to Leon Creer. And then I think it was like just a couple weeks before she was going to come speak, she contacts me. I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry, Chuck, but I can't come for the talk. And I'm like crushed. I'm like,
because she's like it, right?
Yeah.
Is she like
and
one
I'm
of
like, what could possibly be more important than my symposium?
Yeah, nothing.
Up in Chapel Hill. I said, oh, I'm sorry. We were invited by Vice President Gore to come to have dinner with him because he's running for president. I'm like, well, that probably is a little bit more important than my symposium. But the silver lining was the person I invited next was Victor Dover.
Oh, cool.
And got Victor to come up and speak as part of that. So, but anyway, as part of that, Liz, she describes it, they're having these meetings about the applicants for the director position. And they get down to the last meeting and they're like, okay, does anybody have anybody else we should consider? And she's like, oh, and she had this big bag. She'd carry all her notes and everything. Was, oh, wait. And she pulled out a printout of an email from me. He said, we should invite this guy down.
Sounds like the competition wasn't too stiff for the job, though, Chuck.
Anybody better?
Yeah, anyone better?
But it was a little bit of an unusual pick because it's a school of architecture. Everybody except for some planning faculty that had been kind of merged into the School of Architecture, had been in a different program, were architects. And I'm a non-architect. So that was I think a pretty bold move on her part. And she knew me as this person connected with their world, with the urbanism world.
So is that the formation of the Masters in Real Estate Development program?
It does contribute to the where that goes. So the KNIGHT program is a fellowship program. It's a mid-career fellowship program is what it was. And there'd be a dozen fellows. Sometimes we stretch it to one more, all different fields, practitioners all over the country, almost all from KNIGHT communities. So communities where the KNIGHT Foundation did its philanthropy, 26 communities around the country. And we'd get them together 6 times a year. Probably half of them would be here, half of them would be on the road. We'd do travel seminars. The last one would be a big workshop, a big capstone charrette. It was actually called a charrette. And it would be in one of the KNIGHT communities. They would do proposals, the communities, and we would choose one. And we had a good budget. We would take an entire studio, multiple faculty, and all of these fellows to whatever city that the workshop was in. And we would be there for a solid week, which is the way it was done back then, and so we went to San Jose, California. We went to Duluth, Minnesota. We went to Macon, Georgia. Great experiences. But what comes out of that, and so the fellows are all different professions: housing, elected officials, occasional architect, a transportation engineer, and real estate. There was always both a real estate developer and usually a real estate analyst. So Laurie Volk was one of the market researchers one year. Developers, Bill Giedema of Texas. There's a whole series of them. And what was interesting was all of these other fellows from different disciplines always had a really strong interest in what the developer brought to the table and to learn more about their world. They were interested in each other's world. But after a time, so Liz is raising money for what would become the Jorge Perez Architecture Center with Glasgow Hall, Crash, and all of that. And as she's going out to raise money, actually this is where the program came from originally, the Knight program. They said, Knight Foundation said, we're not interested in, we don't do buildings, but we'd be interested in a program. So that led to the creation of the Knight program. When she's still raising money for a building, she realizes that the funding for that kind of investment is probably not going to come from the architecture alumni, from the architecture firms. It's going to come from their clients.
So just to back it up, Liz, what's her affiliation with UM at this point?
So Liz is dean.
Dean of the architecture school.
Liz is dean of the School of Architecture. She's already worldwide now, and she's one of the founders of the Congress for New Urbanism, co-principal of Duane Platter Zeeberk. So Liz is a star. Liz is known,
and you come down to Miami what year?
We get here in, it's another New Year's Eve move. We got here in New Year's Eve, 99. Okay. So I'm here in 2000, starting in 2000.
All right.
So I just finished my, 25th year or so. Yeah.
Okay.
Same as you, no?
Yeah, I got here in 2000 as well.
Okay. Freaking amazing run we've had, huh? 25 years in Miami has been such an incredible time to be here.
I know. What did you think about Miami when you first got here?
When I first came down, when I was researching the placemaking book, I had high expectations because I knew Victor Dover Cole's here, Duane Platter Zeeberk, Correa Vai. It's like, this is this hotbed of new urbanism. I'm going to go down and I'm going to see all this great stuff being done. I was kind of disappointed when I arrived. I was like, hey man, aren't you guys doing any of this down here? It's like,
we just live here. We're living the good life here.
And things like transit-oriented development. Well, we had the Metro Rail, but there was no development hardly at all around the Metro Rail.
It's interesting, right? Why is there this? It's almost like this cluster of new urbanism that has kind of it's in Miami's DNA in some way, right? Like there are these very influential voices in that movement in Miami. How did that start?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does coalesce around University of Miami School of Architecture for sure. I mean, Liz and Andreas's involvement there, they create what was called the Suburb and Town Design Program, which is to, redesign the suburbs to.
And so they start attracting professors, and urban planners of the.
But it was never exclusionary. So there were always faculty who were very contemporary architects. Liz's school, and also under Rudy El Khoury, is very inclusive. So there's a lot of schools of architecture that it's one way. It's all extraordinarily contemporary, and that any aspect of classicism or vernacular or traditional architecture would not be welcome. And that the school was never like that, which I think has always made it such an interesting place to be, and a lot of camaraderie between folks who come from very different perspectives.
So we were talking about the creation of the MRED program. Was that when Liz was raising money for that building, and you were with the Knight program? Is that kind of what coalesced into the?
Yeah. So she realizes, funding for major things like this will come from the clients, probably not from the architecture firms. And George Perez either already was or would become chair of the fundraising for the building. And she says, we should look at maybe creating a graduate program in real estate or in real estate development.
In what year was that seed planted?
This is, so Knight program's been running. We're we get into like '06, I would say. And night program goes for a couple more years. And she says, well, you start looking at this. And she had some other people take a look. Somebody within DPZ kind of looked at different programs out there. I think Armando Montero had done some research, but then she tosses it to me. At this point, I'm not a tenured faculty. I'm what's called a research faculty. I'm there because there's a grant to support me being there. So it's like, all right, I would take this on. And this is what I loved about the time period at the university. University was a very entrepreneurial place. You could do things like this where essentially someone with very little standing, so I'm not tenure track,
like
I'm not
yourself?
tenured, like myself. I remember faculty saying like, not talking about me, but they're not even, tenure track. It's just like, why should I listen to them? But she tossed it to me, the research faculty guy, and I had the time and bandwidth to pursue it. And I remember I went around the university, I met with deans, particularly business school dean, to talk about, hey, you've got a faculty member teaching some real estate finance, one of which was Andrew Hewson, who's been a great partner ever since. You've got a faculty member teaching real estate law. And so I started to kind of cobble together, what could this look like from an interdisciplinary standpoint? And this is kind of building on what the Knight Fellowship had been about. And as we think through the curriculum, instead of ending with a thesis, we decided it should end with this charrette, and we called it a capstone workshop, and we still have it to this day, that the students the students replace the fellows, the graduate students replace the Knight fellows. And as you know, the students all come with some experience. They're not typically not fresh out of undergrad. So they are a little bit like those mid-career fellows. They're not really mid-career. And then we do keep it very interdisciplinary. But I remember the meeting with the business school dean. There was no real estate, active real estate program at the time. They had a real estate undergrad major. And this was before the Great Recession. So before the Great Recession, real estate was not a very well-regarded field or discipline within business schools. There were no major journals where you could publish and become tenured, not very many, in a business school.
What other schools had graduate real estate programs in the country?
There was plenty of real estate programs, but there were not many real estate development programs. So this is why the Urban Land Institute provided seed funding for, I think, what are regarded as the first two, USC and MIT. And so those are kind of the granddaddies of.
And when are those programs?
MRID programs. Those are 80s. Those 80s? Are kind of early mid 80s for those. And those are great programs today. I mean, so that's kind of the genesis. I mean, it does have some legacy in the Knight program that then funnels into this other program. And then I'm not tenured. So I'm like, Leslie, hey, Knight program's ending. I'm going to go out and interview. And she said, well, if you get an offer, let me know and we'll try to match it. We'll try to keep you here because the program's approved. I get the program approved by the faculty senate.
So you have the Masters in Real Estate Development and Urbanism program approved.
Yeah, we did a great study. So by the way, it's 2006.
It's approved in 2006?
It's approved in 2008, in the spring of 2008. But we start interviewing, we identify programs, we interview directors of, I think it was 17 different real estate programs around the country, and collect the curriculums and even research the formation of real estate centers. It was a great report. And then we base our curriculum on kind of the best of that, what we think are the essentials. We decided to go with a 1-year program, 3 semesters instead of 2 years. Instead of 1 year, we kind of went in between. And we had actually the directors of 3 of the programs come down on a visit. This is when Donna Shalala's president. She was also involved. We had Buckley from Columbia's program, many great board members who've gone through Columbia's program, still an excellent program. We had, who else? Carrie Vandell from where Donna Shalala had been at Madison, Wisconsin, one of the oldest real estate programs in the country, real estate urban economics. And then we had Susan Wachter from Penn. And they all came down and they said, oh, I think we had Geltner from MIT too, who's also still there.
And when you get into, are they not competitive? It's very much a partnership. And how does that work in the academic world?
Yeah, so they're invited to come down and tell the administration, the president, and evaluate and meet with a lot of people and decide and let us know, kind of give their opinion. Is this a good opportunity for the University of Miami? Should they be looking to create a program like this? And they were like, you got to be kidding me. You guys should have done this, long ago. You absolutely should do this.
Yeah.
So this is like 2007 now, right? But real estate programs aren't that competitive. I remember when we formed the advisory board for this program, the first dozen people, we decided, we need somebody, some people from different parts of the country, maybe somebody international, and reputation-wise. And then I remember we had Richard Green come, Dr. Green from USC, come and speak to our joint board meeting one year. And I talked to him about it, and he said, no, he's there. Focus your board on the people who are going to give internships, hire your students, come into the classroom, keep it a metropolitan or regional board so that they're engaged. And that was great advice. And that's the way most of these programs operate. When you get up into the upper echelon, you're competing kind of for the best students. And they're really deciding between, do I want to immerse myself in New York? Do I want to immerse myself in Los Angeles? Do I want to immerse myself in Chicago? Do I want to immerse myself in Miami? Because when you go to school, as you know, and this podcast speaks to that, you become connected with that network if the program does what it's supposed to do.
So Liz told you to go get job offers and come back and they try to match it. What did you do? Did you write a fake letter and say,
no, I went on interviews.
I just got $1 million offer, Liz.
No,
you're going to match it, right?
You did have to provide something in writing, yeah. But where did I go? I went to University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, great university.
Is that what you did? You went and sourced other offers and came back and was like, here's what I...
And of course you picked the best one.
Obviously.
University of Minnesota was the best one. I would have been tenured in multiple schools. I would have had a fully funded center and a prestigious position.
But it's Minnesota. You're going to hang out with people like Ben. That's where Ben's from.
Bunch of dorks.
We were there. Well, they brought us up in May to tour and see how beautiful it was.
That was on purpose.
Yeah. Strategic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. We bring people here in February, right?
You got
January,
it.
February. Yeah. But I had offers. I had offers from everyone. I had offers from four different schools. I wanted to stay. My kids were all moving from one grade up to the next, from one school level up to the next, from preschool to elementary to middle to high school. And my son had just gotten into Dash. He was really excited about Dash. And so we wanted to stay, but I'm not tenured. So we're seriously looking at it. We went around with a realtor in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And anyway, I had a great offer from there. And I gave it to Liz. I'm like, we're never going to go for this. And I was approved. I was offered basically comparable package and faster track to get to tenure.
And what does tenure mean exactly?
Tenure means I can say this here. You can basically tell people to fuck off, right?
You're not get
fired. I want to get tenure.
Yeah.
It's not quite that strong as it used to be. But so tenure.
It's basically a job guarantee.
Tenure means that you've achieved a level of accomplishment in your research, your publications, your career that you're considered worthy of being a really permanent part of the faculty. And it does involve a level of kind of job security, I suppose you would say. Tenure track, you're working towards tenure.
Is that normally like a seniority thing? Like you've been here for so many years? And
then there's seniority. No, it's not seniority. You go through a process, and you're evaluated not only by faculty in your school, but by the university, faculty in the university who pick over your curriculum vitae and judge your publications and everything you've done. That's why academic CVs are so long. You document everything you've ever thought or done, right?
I went to art school, so you have to pardon my questions.
But you're used to the brutal critique then, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Your photographs are shit. Yeah, thank you.
So I mean, tenure you really have to work towards, and the problem with the challenge of tenure track is it's the uncertainty. You could be working towards it and you can be doing pretty well, but you never know until the final decision's made whether you're going to be offered tenure or not. And if you're not offered tenure, it's sayonara. You're
Right.
expected to move on. So tenure was really important, especially with somebody with a young family,
of course,
to have stability.
And so what did you immediately start doing with the MRed program early days? Did you design the curriculum? You kind of like, what did that involve?
Yeah. So curriculum design, that's kind of one of the things you'll see if you're looking at my CV. It's part of what I've done. So I got hired to be the night program director, but there was no curriculum. So I had to create that from scratch. What are we going to do with people? Each of them had individual kind of research initiative that they pursued and they would share and talk about when we did it. Same thing with the MRed program. That's why we did the big study and the interviews to determine, well, what should we have as part of our program? What's a good fit for us here in Miami, part of a school of architecture, drawing on our law school, our business school as well. Oldest real estate program in the university, by the way, is the LLM in real property development now in the law school. That goes back to the 80s, and it's one of the oldest LLMs specializing in real estate in the entire country.
Wow. So 2008, the program starts. You get the first class in 2008?
2008, we get approved, and I do have to get it through the faculty senate, which included a memorable exchange where I think it was a biology professor said, but we're letting the devil into the university if we approve this real estate program. And
who's the devil exactly?
The real estate industry. Yes. But they did approve it. So, and our argument was, and I remember a great meeting between Liz and myself and Provost Glazer where we talked about it. And he said his perspective was the university should teach what the community needs. And a lot of times you see this happen with like public policy institutes and things like that. And we felt the community needs a real estate development program, ideally good places in a school of architecture, so that we can shape the next generation of real estate development professionals and think about things like, introduce affordable housing and historic preservation and green building and walkability and all these other concepts, transit-oriented development, along with the fundamentals, right, of finance and market analysis and construction management.
Still all issues today, especially the affordable housing stuff.
But that was the argument, and I think it was a good argument, and I think we've tried to stay true to that mission. The interesting thing is right now, in fact, on Monday we have our second meeting. We have a strategic planning initiative, first one since we created the program, where we're doing it over again. It's like a point in time. The dean asked me, he said, you should do a strategic planning initiative. I was like, oh my God, it's like, shoot me. But I thought about it and it's like, all right, the last time we did something that comprehensive was when we created the program. So we're doing it now. We hired a great consultant, Rolando Rodriguez. We have an excellent task force, a subset of the board, and it's a no holds barred. How do we go from good to great at this point? What do we need? What's our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats? How do we retool? How do we adapt to the way the industry is changing? How do we incorporate artificial intelligence into the tools that students use and still ensure that they actually know what they're talking about when they come out? How do you test for knowledge when so much is being machine generated? So I think it's a great time to do it. And I think all of my peers in real estate programs, it's something that we all need to be doing, probably on a organized basis like this. We've evolved organically over time and responded to trends and changes, but this is a real refresh moment.
I mean, that's interesting you bring that up because it's one thing that Felipe and I have talked about before we were talking to you is like, how do you deal with AI in the academic?
Can we just back it up before we talk about AI?
Yeah.
I'm sticking with my seltzer here.
Yeah, no, come on. I feel like we're going to be here for a
We're
little
going
bit
to talk
longer.
about AI. I got to go NA, man.
So just real quick on the program. So the program starts in 2000. The first class is 2009.
So it's approved 2008 in the spring. The first part-time class, because you don't have all the classes with faculty yet, starts in the fall of 2008. The second class after the Great Recession begins, that was 8 students, by the way, part-time class in 08, fall of 08. The Great Recession begins, and we're totally unknown. And in the fall of 09, 19 students show up. So a cohort is pretty big for a new program.
Because everyone's unemployed.
Go back to school. Or afraid of being unemployed. Hey, if I'm going to go back to school, now's the time. Right?
Yeah.
It is very cyclical. And so then the first graduating class is that next spring, 2010. So,
and quick question. Steve Nostrand, he was kind of very, he's in many ways a mentor of mine. I was a teaching assistant of his. And how did you guys get connected? He was very instrumental in being part of that very, very early on in the program, I think, right?
Steve was beloved and really instrumental, part of the beginning of the program when I had to start figuring out who's going to teach all these courses, right?
Yeah.
So we'd done a series of seminars to kind of test the market. And so we did one on finance, different topics, and we had great response.
How did you guys meet?
I think, I'm trying to remember who introduced us. It may very well have been my neighbor, John Geisen. Remember John?
I don't think so.
John's retired now. John was with Cadena. John was with Cadena quite a while.
And Steve was with Cadena.
Yeah, they were both there. That's probably where the connection was made.
When did you do
Jose
this program?
Hevia was one of the first founding board members. Jose Hevia was head of Cadena at the time, president anyway. And he's a graduate of the School of Architecture. That may have also been a connection there. It was one or the other.
When did you do it?
So I think I started the program in 2011, and I originally I was working in banking and really didn't like it, and then I met Mike Leiden, and he
Mike's on the CNU board with me now.
Is he? Yeah. Awesome. We're gonna get him on the podcast too.
Mike would be great.
Yeah. Mike kind of opened my world to this whole new urbanism thing. We started writing for this blog called Transit Miami at the time. And we were kind of like just talking about like transit here in Miami. And Mike and I met, I think, riding bicycles, commuting to work one day. And so I started taking some urban planning classes at FAU. And, I was commuting up there. I think I did it for about a year. And at that point, I'm like, I'm not going to be an urban planner. And then I had this interest in real estate. And next thing I know, there's this real estate development and urbanism program in my backyard. I'm like, what? And how come I've never heard of this?
When did you start the blog?
I think I started blogging for Transit Miami in like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And so, Mike had this connection with Liz too, because he worked at DPZ. Yeah. And then the program, just at the same time, I was like, you know what, I need a career change here. I don't want to do banking anymore. This program shows up and pops up on my radar. I don't even know who told me. Maybe it was Mike that had told me, or I started doing some research about it. And that's how I got involved with UM. I started as a part-timer. And Steve was one of you and Steve were my two first professors at the end.
Steve was great. He was a really good, very effective instructor, right? I mean, he was a great communicator, great champion of the program, and stayed in touch with so many of the alumni. I mean, he maintained connections.
Who were the early people that you brought on the advisory board?
So advisory board, I found the minutes of that just recently. We had our fall board meeting just a couple of weeks ago. So we were 10 or 12. We had 10 or 12 advisors. Literally, they were advisors. We didn't ask for money. We said, look, we need your counsel on how to organize this curriculum and how to launch this program. And we asked Neeson Kasdan to chair. We'd known Neeson a long time. Liz had known him forever. And I feel
like Neeson doesn't say no to anything real estate related, right? He's like, when it's community, it's like, he's like all in.
Neeson's an institution.
Yeah.
Man. Neeson is, he's been so instrumental in so many things. and still is. But Neeson was the first chair. You know, one of the great things Neeson did was he said, "You need some younger people on this board." That was one of the last things he helped us with before we only have 2-year terms for chairs. And one of the people he brought on was Nitin Motwani.
Oh, cool.
And then Nitin would become a chair.
So Nitin
later.
Nitin was number 2?
No, he would become a chair later though. But Nitin was
early on advisor.
Yeah, he had not yet won Young Leader of the Year award for ULI. So.
All right, cool. And just kind of to fast forward it where the program is today, and then I really want to talk about AI.
It got up to 80 board members. It's self-regulating. The board recruits people and has a nominating committee. So we'd really grown by leaps and bounds. The program's grown by leaps and bounds. So we went down quite a bit after the Great Recession boomlet. Kind of came back down to earth, hit single digits for a little while too. And now this year, total full-time, part-time, we take students in the spring and the fall, the full-time group. And then there's another group that spreads it out a little longer. There's 60 students matriculating through the MRED program right now, which is a record. The incoming class, I think, was 37 in the fall. We picked up another 12 in the spring. So we're a pretty large program. We're the biggest grad program in the School of Architecture. We're the biggest real estate program at but we're also pretty big compared to our peers. We're not as big as a Columbia, but we're a little bit bigger headcount wise than USC at this point. So now the strategic plan we're working on is how do we go from good to great, right? How do we, we're all word of mouth right now, almost entirely for the students who are coming between board members and alumni. Got 350 of you out there, alumni.
Look at that.
So that's all going good. So now it's to ramp up the rigor and the quality and adapt to what's coming next. And I talk about my own background and aspect to this is mixed use development and town centers and new urbanism, but it's finance, it's analytics, it's this is the area where we're gonna continue to push the envelope.
It all comes down to financial engineering on a lot of this stuff anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. Should we talk about AI?
Yeah, we want to pick your brain a little bit on
all my expertise.
Yeah, all your expertise. Well, it's just we use it a lot, in our day to day, and I'm curious, like how is the classroom changing with AI?
Because if I was a student, I would be AIing the shit out of all my essays.
Yeah.
Everything.
Like how do you? I mean,
so tomorrow I just finished preparing it today. For the first time in quite a while, we're doing a sit-down, in-person paper exam, final exam. Because when it's, we had done online open book, but the more online it is, the more it's just like,
it's a free-for-all.
It's a free-for-all. Even when the question, if you're being very careful about how you write the questions, it's more trying to provoke thought, and it's just too slippery at this point. So tomorrow, everybody's bringing their number 2 pencils. And,
nice.
And no calculators even. The calculations will be on paper because they're not too complicated. So that's part of what we're going through, right? You hear blue books coming back in other fields, right? The old blue books where you had to write out essays on paper and everything. This is not what faculty want. We don't want to be sitting down for the holidays with a stack of blue books.
Right.
And on the other side, there's tools for educators to help with grading and things like that. My concern, and I think the challenge for everybody, is the tools are going to be critical, right? So if you're doing financial analysis, of course, you're going to use the best tools available to you to perform that market analysis.
AI is still not there for that anyway.
No, it's not, but it's getting there. I
mean,
mean,
I'm sure.
Especially for entry-level stuff. And for market analysis, you're going to be using artificial intelligence. I met with Lee Slezak at Lennar, who's involved in AI at Lennar, and kind of what some of the changes were there. And he said, we had this method where we're working on a project, and it would be, I think it was called the green folder, and all of the pages and pages and due diligence information of stuff put in this, and then it would be sent to the next person's desk and the next person's desk. Well, a lot of that stuff can be gathered using AI now. So that's, and market analysis is another area. You think of all the assignments we do: site analysis for your site, market analysis, financial analysis, and even the design concept. This year, we always try to get the MREDs some tool to be able to express ideas when they're across the table from architects. We don't try to make them designers, but we want them to be able to have an intelligent conversation. And it used to be like, just show us pictures of, the kind of place you're talking about. We were training them in Rhino, trying to get them to learn different software. This year, we had an architecture faculty member teach them how to use a couple of different AI platforms to generate both plans and 3D visualizations for their actual sites. So that was an experiment, and we'll have to refine that. So the challenge with all these tools is, okay, you use the tools, but then I have to ensure, do you understand the concepts, and can you interpret and explain everything that's coming out of it, that's coming out of the black box? And that's I think, a big challenge.
It's a fine line. I mean, I've used it in proposals that we're putting together for development projects where we need some renderings, and instead of paying crazy money to have renderings done, you can just use some prompts and send it to the site, and it can do pretty damn good job.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's certainly efficiency factors there, but
so I you know what, I have an example of kind of the limitations here of AI. So let me see. Felipe was contacting me, telling me where to go to this meeting. And he said, hey, tell the parking lot attendant you're here for the podcast. Our office is in Borough. Tell me where the entrance is. So I just used the microphone, right? So I'm busy, and I just hit the microphone, and I'm talking to Siri. So I say, thanks, Felipe, will do. I'll Uber there and have them drop me off. And I look at the text. I'll send you the snapshot of this. And it says, thanks, sweet babe. Will do. I'll Uber there. And I'm like, what?
Well,
I was like, how did Felipe become sweet babe? And I'm like,
serious trash.
I was lucky I caught this, because this would be a very different interview if that had gone through. No, it's not perfect by any means. Yeah. And even the note taking, which is great for meetings with students and reviews and stuff, you go through it, and there's lots of errors and misstatements.
Do you are most of the students required to be in the classroom, or
yes.
are they? No,
we're all in person.
It's all in person.
There's a legacy of so before the pandemic, the law school already had a distance learning program for the lawyers in the real property development program. So that continues, and those students take my fall development course. So they're still distance. Everybody else is in person, and
so they're required to be in the classroom.
They're required to be in the classroom. So unless you have the latest version of COVID or some crisis that you can convince us has come up, you can't go on Zoom.
Yeah.
Even though we record all the classes on Zoom. That's a good tool. Like right now, for them to review if they want to go back and listen to lectures before they do an exam or something.
Or run it through AI and tell them what they've said.
Yeah. I was actually thinking that there was it does take great notes.
Totally. Yeah. 100%.
Organizes it.
Yeah. It's good at condensing things. I'm curious, looking forward, like from your lens, you've studied tons of placemaking, urbanism, I guess maybe even with this lens on South Florida in particular, what do you think the future looks like? Like, are we moving more towards urbanism? Because it almost seems like the divide is widening across all sectors, from financial to everything. Like the rich are getting richer, the lower half's getting poorer. And it almost seems like that in real estate as well. I mean, the highest sales velocity is like the Cipriani residences, the super high-end branded stuff. The affordable housing stuff's really tough to make pencil. Like, I'm building a project right now. I know it's really difficult. The Class A stuff's the only stuff that's really getting financed. Where do you see the place of new urbanism on a go-forward basis?
So it's interesting. So all of the, I look back at all of the early studies and things that were being done. There was a PricewaterhouseCoopers study done with the Congress for New Urbanism about the future of malls, of shopping malls. This is in the late 90s. And they were looking at, the malls most likely to be threatened and what would have to change, and that there were opportunities for redevelopment, mixed use development. And, at the time it's like, a few of these might fail, but they're really hard to do. And you have the anchors that control, big sections of the parking lot. So it was definitely not complete buy-in on that. Well, look where we are now, and it just through each phase, Great Recession, through all the category killers, through the pandemic, and it's not because online retailing is replacing it all. It's not. There's brick and mortar is still very much alive, but the consumer choice of experience is always changing, right? And we're at a completely different place than the era of the shopping mall. So the great malls, the fortress malls as they call them, will continue to survive, but even they are diversifying. So Dadeland has a hotel, and the mixed use aspect of malls, the addition of kind of streets with food and beverage, the introduction of something more than parking lots and trying to connect the property to communities, all of that, which was talked about 30 years ago, is very much mainstream now. So there's a whole lot of things that were promoted and talked about at that time that I think are very mainstream now. And then every wave, there's questions about now. It's like, well, younger people don't want to live in the city anymore. It was all back to the city because they want to get out. They're having children. It's less expensive. They use remote work. All of that's true, but it's not going to be the suburbs where I grew up, or where people grew up 10, 20, 30 years ago. It is very much a suburban. People are seeking a suburban lifestyle. So my son moved to Cary, North Carolina. Cary has a downtown. I couldn't believe it. 25 years ago, Cary was nothing but a suburb. But the people who have populated Cary, the young professionals, the tech workers, have created an amazing piece of downtown around a great park and a library. And so lifestyle-wise, and the tastes, and where people who are the new buyers in the market are going to take things is very different. And it doesn't address the problem of affordability, which is something different. But they're also not sitting around having scotch with me. They're not. There's very. I would say the big place where there's change is lifestyle. It's health and wellness. It's life-work balance. This current generations, and I'm not a critic of, they don't work as hard as us, and they, you always heard this, from your grandparents on down. That generation's lazy, and they
too much avocado toast.
I don't believe that at all. I mean, I see how hard they work and how committed they are, but they want a balance in their lives, which I think is healthy. And there's as many dog owners as people with children or more, right? There's all these different interests and priorities that are going to transform the shape of neighborhoods and communities. And that's part of the opportunity for the people we're putting out into the world, the people developing the next communities. They have to really understand that. You see things that happen at the highest end. So we had Vanessa Grout come in, and of course she's with Amman, right? And we had Garrett Grau come in. And so the health and wellness at the highest end of hospitality that is now at the highest end of residential, that's not going to trickle down into the mainstream, but the mainstream wants elements of that. And so I think those are really good trends and opportunistic trends. I think it's not a return to, endless automobile lifestyle. People want a different life than we had.
I mean, you said it a unique perspective because you've had so much time in studying urbanism, and real estate's a funny industry where it takes so long. It's like steering a ship. Everyone's like, how long have we heard Little Havana's the next place to pop? It's been the last 20 years and the shit's still the same.
Well, West Palm Beach, right?
It
was always West Palm Beach. That market's going to take off. And we had a conference for ULI every year, and it's like, it would fizzle and everything.
It just takes so long.
West Palm Beach is a reality now.
Yeah. So it's an interesting perspective. So the through lines are health and wellness and a return. Are we returning it all to the 20s style of construction, more walkability, more?
I think walkability, people want walkability. I mean, the most expensive neighborhoods in cities are those Coral Gables and those Dilworths and Myers Park. And that's because of all these elements. You know, if you can recreate that in a new development, then you've really got something.
You're going to crush it. I mean, we talked to David Martin, and he has his philosophy too. He's all about building communities. So it's cool to see some developers not just chasing, you know, the biggest sellout as fast as possible. They're really being conscientious about how they go about it.
And there's different versions of it at different scales, right? So, you know, we can't build at the lowest scale, but we have a lot of opportunity that land throughout much of South Florida has only ever been touched once. And it's very low density development. And a lot of it's like land banks in the form of parking lots. So there's a lot of opportunity for infill and redevelopment that'll bring it up a notch. And it has to. And so this is the affordability problem, you know, the cost of development. We had a speaker at the beginning of the semester on history of Coral Gables. And my students won't hear this, so I'll talk about it now. It's on the exam tomorrow. There's one slide that captured everything that George Merrick and his team built in 4 years and 10 months in the mid-20s. And it was essentially the historic Coral Gables that we know.
Wow.
I mean, it's like 1,700 homes. It was apartments. It was, you know, it was hotels. It was the city hall. It was hospitals. It was, you know, all of the entire street network, the planting of all the trees, the fountains. It was just a massive accomplishment, undertaking. So why 100 years later can't we build at that pace and that quality?
Is that just bureaucracy, regulation?
I think that's part of it. I think there's, you know, all of the specialization and all of the regulation and the public process, right? The public process has become tough. And it's not that the public is wrong. You know, there's been so much bad development that they are resistant and suspect for any of us coming in with the latest, greatest idea to improve their community. But it's why we're seeing things like Live Local emerge. You know, how surprising that at the state level there would be a move to supersede local land use regulation in the interest of affordable housing. Imperfect, right? But it's a sign of the times that it's reached a crisis proportion, not just for the growth areas, but really across the country, how difficult it is to build and how costly it is before, you know, you even put a shovel in the ground. You know, you might be carrying $50,000, $100,000 per unit or per key before you start to build.
I mean, the problem here too is Live Local is great, but two things is that one, all of a sudden, all the sites that are eligible for Live Local, the sellers, everything's $20 million an acre now because you can build 1,000 units allegedly per Live Local. And, you know, that kind of negates the whole Live Local angle. And then two, even if you get well-priced land, to build to the hurricane codes now is so damn expensive. Even if the land was free, the equity markets are so gnarly that you can't get equity guys to fund these projects because the cement, the concrete, the windows, everything's so expensive that it's hard to make this stuff pencil.
Yeah.
So without subsidy, you really can't go much below 120% AMI. That's like the bottom end of it. So getting deeper than that, you really need subsidy. I don't know if you have a different perspective on how we get affordability in Miami, but it's...
Yeah. An accelerated timeline would certainly help. You know, we like Miami 21 originally, and probably still does have some approvals that are supposed to be staff level, right? You're not supposed to have to go through so many levels and all the way up to a vote of either a commission or an entire community in some cases to get approval for something. That's part of it. But we are landlocked, you know, we're not making a lot more developable land. That's another part of it. We do have a lot of people moving here. So there's pressure on that. So, you know, there is a pressure on the cost of land that we have to contend with. I think looking to subsidies to solve everything is probably it's not the solution. We'll never produce enough. We'll never build enough to build our way out of an affordability crisis. I think David Martin has some really great thinking on this, and he'll boil it down to a formula of, you know, what the return needs to be in order to produce X amount of affordable housing. And, you know, if you know, he can make that formula work, if he can convince a community to work with him on it, then it can happen. But you need the power of the private sector to build our way out of it.
Yeah, I mean, more land would be helpful. You could build more low rise. That would be cheaper. But if you're going above garden style, it gets pretty cost prohibitive real quick. It's a tough problem to solve.
I'm not really in favor of like opening up Yellowstone and other places to try to solve the problem. I don't think affordable housing would do well there anyway.
You mean in Montana?
No, just in general, the discussions around the country about we should just open up public lands for more development. Maybe there's some places where that makes sense, but
yeah,
you had Charles Fascini on. He was a good advocate for conservation here.
He was, yep. He
Definitely.
doesn't want to see condos in the Everglades.
No,
Charles.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Let's wrap it up with one last thing here. The Real Estate Impact Conference.
Coming up.
It's to me, it's probably the best real estate meeting of the year, networking event, great speakers. It's coming up, I think, March 4th?
March 6th.
March 6th.
Friday, March 6th.
Do we, it's
You got to get somebody to invite you or sponsor.
Yeah, okay.
Because it has been an invitation only, which sounds kind of exclusive, but we get 800 to 900 people coming out and joining us.
Okay. It's put together by the 3 schools: the business school, the architecture school, the law school.
Yeah, law schools take a break. They're restructuring. They have a great new dean. So right now it's ourselves in business. We've been doing it for like 15 years now. You remember probably the early ones.
I think I went to the first one.
With Sam Zell?
With Sam Zell
in 1450 Brickell.
1450, I think we were all wearing hard hats there.
Yeah, we were in an unfinished
amazing.
floor of 1450. And we just had Alan Ojeda talking about 1450, which is a great story.
He's a really cool guy. Do we know who's speaking can you tell us who's speaking at the conference?
We do, and we had a great group of board members working on this. We have Willie Walker interviewing Peter Linneman as a featured session. So these two guys, and the Willie Walker webcast, competition for you guys. Right?
Yeah.
But they're going to record it on stage, cool. And then that'll play a few days later. They've done this interview before, but it's Peter's always commenting on the latest kind of quarter, kind of what's happened, what's happening, what's expected in both real estate, urban economics, federal policy. So we expect that to be a really great, lively discussion.
Cool.
We have Steve Witkoff, who's going to be with us. And Steve, the name of the session, something, I think it's like In the Room It Happened, or it's something like that. And the idea is that, Steve's a kind of extremely well-known person in the real estate industry. And, you could think about all of the deals he's made in a room. But now he has this whole, other role he's been playing diplomatically and very active right this minute, that he can also talk some about when we have him. So that's going to be a really fascinating interview. And then we have a session with Nadim Meghi. And so Nadim is going to be, and it says he's the global co-head of Blackstone Real Estate. And it was just announced that the other co-head is moving on. So he is the de facto head of real estate for Blackstone. And like I said, Arnaud invited him and he accepted. And they were classmates, which is pretty cool. So he's our other session. Stuart Miller is going to interview Steve Witkoff.
Oh, cool.
Which would be a great session.
We'll see if we can get an invite.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, or we could just crash it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Wedding Crasher style.
Yeah, Wedding Crasher style.
Well, there's going to be heavy security with Steve there.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
We run pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Bohl, this was it was great to get your whole story. And having the UM program here is just phenomenal. It's done a lot for me, and I know it's done a lot for the 300 alumni that are now have moved on from UM. So thanks for putting that together.
Most of them still here in South Florida.
Most of them are still in South Florida.
Yeah.
Are most of the incoming class, are they from Florida, or are they coming from
About 50% Florida. I think about maybe 20% international, and the other 30% from around the U.S.
Okay. And where are the internationals coming from?
International is a mix. I mean, as you'd expect, Central and South America, a good chunk. But like right now, we have a student from Switzerland. We've had students in the past from the Middle East, from Europe, from Russia, from Ukraine, you know, South Korea. I mean, so pretty much quite a mix. But I would say the core of that is South and Central America, some Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Well, awesome. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the recommendation on the Scotch. It was phenomenal. And
Thank you for providing. Thanks for the invite. Keep inviting our great board members to come in.
Yeah,
I
thanks for letting us poach your
those
board.
sessions.
Yeah.
I love listening to them. Hey, have you had Toby Cobb?
We have. Toby was one of the early ones.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
We should have him again. Toby's terrific.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's been really instrumental to us and to the university.
We can get an update on the capital markets from him probably.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, keep on rocking, Dr. Bohl.
All right. I will.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.